Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's live stream. Should I use the PMBOK Guide 6th or 7th edition if I'm taking the PMP exam in 2021? This is the question that we are going to be exploring today. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Cornelius Fichtner. I have been a PMP trainer since about 2008. And the number one question that I'm getting at the moment is this one right here. Which version of the PMBOK guide should I be using if my exam is in 2021? And that's what we are going to look at today. I have an answer for you. I have recommendations. Well, let's look at the agenda. Here we go. Wait, next slide. There we go, the agenda. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the answer, okay? I want you to be right there. I want you to know what the answer is. Then we're going to take a look at why is that the answer, because the answer may surprise you a little bit, okay? In part 2, why is that the answer? Then in part 3, we're also going to talk about what to ask your training provider, because we do get a lot of questions from our students. Hey, is your training material this? Is your training material that? And I'm going to tell you what you have to ask your training provider so that you get the correct training materials for your PMP exam. Okay. And then last but not least, I have a list of recommended study materials for you as well. All right. Let's get started with part 1 here. Part 1 is obviously the answer to the big question. Should I use PMBOK Guide 6 or should I use PMBOK Guide 7? That's the quandary that people have right now. And the answer to this question is the big reveal. Here we go. Use the 6th edition. Okay, now let me make it absolutely clear. This is if your PMP exam is in 2021. Notice that the number 2021 at the top is in turquoise, and so is the 6th edition. So you want to use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition in 2021. Does that surprise you? Well, if it does, then I have an explanation for you. This is what part 2 is all about. Why this answer? Okay, why do I recommend that you use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition? There are 3 factors that play into this. First factor is the exam content outline. Second factor is an FAQ from PMI. And there is also an official reference list that PMI has published. And every single one of those things points to the 6th edition. So let's take a look, and we begin with the exam content outline. And we start this section by saying the PMP exam is not a test of the PMBOK guide. Okay, this is one of the things that PMP candidates need to get into their head. The PMBOK guide is an important book, but it is not the PMP exam. Okay, and what is the PMP exam? The PMP exam is based on the exam content outline. Okay, so if you take the PMP exam, then the questions, the content, the topics, the rules and regulations about the PMP exam are all defined in the ECO, the exam content outline. Okay, let me show you how this works here. The ECO defines the required knowledge, okay? And if you look at the ECO, about 20 pages long, PMI is currently reworking it. They're adding additional information into it. They're not changing the content. So this particular example here, which say exactly the same, they're adding stuff before and after. But these are the tasks that we as project managers have to be able to perform. Okay, so task 1 is you have to be able to manage conflict on your project. Task 2 is you have to lead the team. Task 3 at the bottom there, you have to be able to support team performance. And this is what you need to know. This is the knowledge that you need to have. This is the experience that you need to have before taking the PMP exam. This exam content outline defines clearly what can be and what cannot be on the PMP exam. For example, last year in 2020, the exam content outline did not mention Agile in any way. Therefore, there was very, very little Agile on the 2020 PMP exam. Now the exam content outline says 50% is Agile, 50% is plan-driven projects, Agile and hybrid actually. That's why it's on the exam right now. So the PMP exam content outline, that is the driver for the PMP exam. Okay, now what does PMI say in their FAQ? They have a number of FAQs out. I picked out one question here. How does the release of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition impact the PMP certification exam? PMI says exactly the same thing. PMI says the PMBOK Guide is one of many reference books. It is not a PMP test prep tool. Refer to the exam content outline instead. Let me be absolutely clear. I paraphrased this here, so much longer. It's like 2.5 paragraphs long, and I paraphrased and summarized what PMI says. In another FAQ, PMI was also asked the question, well, when is the 7th edition going to be part of the PMP exam? And they said, it's going to be a while, okay? And that's why I'm saying if your PMP exam is in 2021, then it is going to be the PMBOK Guide 6th edition that you need and not the 7th edition. But primarily, you need to look at the exam content outline to understand what you need to know. The required knowledge, the required experience is in the exam content outline. Okay. And then the third factor that plays into this is this here. PMI has a reference list, okay? And you can find that here. I have a short link for you, and we're going to open this up yet. Oh, wait, I forgot to open up another browser window here with that link, and it's not behaving. There we go. Let me open, take this over. PMP exam reference. If I could type reference list. There we go. pm-prepcast.com. I hope I typed that right. Wait, what is it? Reference list. That's what it's called. Yeah, if I could type in the correct link, that would help. Reference list. That will take you, this is just a forwarding link, that will take you to the correct page on the PMI website. They occasionally change the structure of their website. So, with these links that I give you, I will always update them so you can find them more easily if you type them in correctly. Okay. So what do we see here? This is the reference list. Remember, PMI said previously here that the PMBOK Guide is one of many reference books, but it is not an exam content, an exam test prep tool. Okay, so what do we have here? These are the references. And here on the official reference list, PMI says the PMBOK Guide 6th edition is an official reference. This page does not talk about the 7th edition at all. Okay, so PMI clearly says the PMBOK Guide is a reference. Use the exam content outline. And on the reference list, PMI says currently we are using the 6th edition. Okay, so this is another indicator that the 6th edition is what you must read at the moment. Okay, so how exactly does this work? Okay, so the PMBOK Guide is only one of 10 reference books. Okay. On the left-hand side, you can see that the PMP exam is based on the exam content outline, and exam questions are created based on the exam content outline. And then on the on the right, you have all those reference books, including the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Okay. So this is sort of the high-level view. Now let's delve in deeper here. Let's take a look at how exactly this works. How are exam questions for the PMP exam developed? Well, first of all, we need the topics. What topics are going to be on the PMP exam? Based on those topics, questions are developed, and these questions are then verified by opening up reference books and making sure that at least 2 reference books agree on this. Okay, so we already know the topics come from the exam content outline there on the left bottom. Okay, so that's the basis. That's where the topics are defined. Because it's in the exam content outline, PMI can ask about this topic and create questions on a topic. So they open up the exam content outline, they take a topic, and now let's develop questions for that. They develop a question with answer, 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 answer. Okay. Now they have a question with 4 answers. Yeah, well, which of these answers is correct? Well, now is the moment when we open up the reference book. And in the reference book, we're seeing which answer is correct. Now remember, one of those reference books, only one of those 10 reference books, is the PMBOK Guide, currently 6th edition. Okay, there are 9 other reference books. Okay, and it could very well be that this question that we're looking at right now doesn't use the PMBOK Guide at all as the reference. It could be the Agile Practice Guide and another Agile book, or it could be 2 completely different plan-driven project management books. So it is not necessary that a question is answered by the PMBOK Guide, because there are 10 books in total that PMI can choose from. Okay, now you understand why it is the 6th edition and how questions are developed on the PMP exam. Okay, now then, that's it for part 3, why I recommend that you study the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Now let's move on. Now, let's say you are currently in the process of, I need to get my study materials ready. What question should I ask my training provider about their exam prep material? Here is the question you should not be asking. So do not ask, is your training material based on the PMBOK Guide 7th edition or 6th edition or 8th edition or whatever edition is out there and the current one? Okay, that's not what you're supposed to ask. Instead, ask them this question here. Does your training material cover all the exam material described in the PMP exam content outline? That is the important question to ask, right? Because remember, if you ask them, does it cover what's in the PMBOK Guide? You're only asking, do you cover 1 out of 10 of the reference books? Right? But if you say, hey, do you cover the exam content outline? Now you're asking, do you cover everything that could be on the PMP exam? Not just what's in the PMBOK Guide. Remember, 9 other books, but hundreds and hundreds of pages. Okay? So that's the question to ask. Does your training material cover all exam material described in the PMP exam content outline? That's the right question. So if I get asked this question, then this is what I would say. My answer to our students. I would say, yes, all our training materials are based on the exam content outline. And currently, they reference the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. And I'm making absolutely clear that I'm saying currently they reference the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, because it could very well be, right, that once they update this here, the reference list, and they switch over to the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, that we are going to have to act quickly, right? We're literally waiting for PMI to make the first move. Once PMI says, okay, we are starting to integrate the PMBOK Guide 7th edition into the PMP exam, then we are going to do the same thing for our exam simulator as well as for our PrepCast training course. Okay, those are our primary two training materials here. All right, so yes, we are based on the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, referencing it, but everything, the foundation, is the exam content outline. That's what your exam materials need to be, and that's what you should ask your training provider. All right, that's it for part 3. Now then, part 4, okay? My recommended study materials. Now, with all of this out of the way, the question becomes, well, what's your recommendation? What should I study? Which books should I open? What should I do? Okay, so let me begin at a very high level here. Let's take a look at this from the annual perspective. Right now, it is 2021. As we have determined, right, in 2021, you definitely need to use the exam content outline as your basis. You want to understand what is the experience, what is the content, what's going to be, what are the topics that are going to be on the PMP exam. Then the PMBOK Guide 6th edition is an important tool to prepare for the PMBOK, the PMP exam. Therefore, you want to read the 6th edition. Definitely. And you definitely want to use additional prep tools. We'll get to that on the next slide, actually. Once this changes in 2022, and this is my best guess here on the right side, okay? Once 2022 rolls around, you still need to use the exam content outline. That doesn't change. The PMBOK Guide is still only just a reference, and the exam is based on the exam content outline. So if you start with that, most likely in 2022, all right, you will need the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. That's my best guess. PMI is also creating an online electronic version of various tools, techniques, and you know, the ITTOs that are currently in the 6th edition. They are all going online. So maybe PMI is going to say, oh, PMI Standards Plus is what it's called. That's part of it. You know, that's also another reference that we use, and then additional prep tools. This is my best guess. Okay. Is it really going to be the 7th edition in 2022? Is the Standards Plus going to be part of 2022? I do not know. It's still about 6 months to go until that is going to be made public. So best guess at the moment. But right now, you know, use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. All right. So that's it from a very high level. Now let's take a look at the training materials. Let's see how you built this up. The first thing that you need is obviously not a training material. The first thing you need is yourself, your experience as a project manager, your background, all the projects that you've done. That is your bottom foundation, right? On that experience, you build up and you add various PMP exam prep materials. The first thing you do is you need a PMP exam prep course. And that course is at least 35 hours in duration. And I say at least because last year it was 35 hours, and then they added Agile on top of that and hybrid, right? So you can imagine if you have to know everything you had to know in 2020, and now you also have to know everything about Agile, there's a lot more to learn already. Okay, so you need a PMP exam prep course, minimum of 35 hours in duration. Then on top of that, we add the exam content outline. Okay, you need to look at the exam content outline. You want to open it up, you need to study it, you have to understand what's in there, right? It would be like trying to play a game of chess and not understanding the rules. The exam content outline gives you the rules of the PMP exam, okay? Without it, you're flying blind. Now then, on top of that, you want to read the PMBOK Guide and the Agile Practice Guide. From my perspective, out of the 10 reference books that you need, out of the 10 reference books that PMI gives, you need to study these two, because all the others should be part of your exam prep course. These two should also be part of your exam prep course, but you definitely want to open those up, look at them, and understand what's in the PMBOK guide. And just as a reminder, it's 2021. You want to look at the PMBOK guide 6th edition. Okay. All right. Now then, you could stop here, right? You could stop here in terms of study materials, but I'm going to add two important bits on top of that. First of all, I want you to study the Agile Manifesto and the Scrum Guide. Okay, Scrum, Agile seems to be dominant on the PMP exam when it comes to lessons learned. People aren't used to it. Many PMPs are used to leading traditional, plan-driven, waterfall projects. And their experience with Agile is, on the side. They may have heard of it, but they don't really know it. So you want to go above and beyond what you really need. And you want to read the Agile Manifesto, and you want to read the Scrum Guide 2020 so that you really understand what Agile is all about. Okay. Now you have that. Now you have your experience as a project manager at the very bottom of this here, not listed. You've gone through all these trainings. Now what? Are you just going to take the exam? No, because just like, learning how to drive a car, you want to drive the car around a little bit. Well, here is how you drive around the car. You're going to get yourself a 2021 exam simulator, and you're going to apply everything that you have learned, your experience, your understanding, the theoretical knowledge you learned in the course from the Scrum Guide, from the Agile Practice Guide, all of that. You're putting it together and you're applying it to hundreds and hundreds of these sample questions. Okay. And when it comes to the PMP exam simulator, let me be absolutely clear, there are many out there, right? Every major exam prep provider offers their own exam simulator. I would appreciate it if you would consider looking at mine, pmexamsimulator.com. Please add it to the list of the tools that you look into and compare with the rest on the market. Right. And that is pretty much it here for today. Let me kind of summarize everything that we have said. First thing you need to know is you want to know what's in the exam content outline. That's at the beginning of everything, right? You need to understand that so that you understand the topics, the content. Then look for reputable sources and experience when it comes to PMP exam prep. You want to take a 35-hour-long, that's a minimum, PMP exam prep course, and then you need to complement that course with 3 to 5 weeks of self-study. And it is during that self-study time when you're going to review the PMBOK guide. What we do is we now offer also PM Study Coach guidebooks. They're kind of helping you from the very start to the end. They're like 12 books, all designed to be gone through in a week. And in that way, you know exactly what do I do in week 1, what do I do in week 12. It goes as far as gives you an exam day checklist, so you know what to do on exam day. Then next, second bullet from the bottom, use an exam simulator. Again, this is my number one suggestion to everybody. An exam simulator is important. It is at the top of everything. Without an exam simulator, you do not know how to drive this car, and you cannot drive your car successfully to its destination. And the destination is obviously there at the bottom. Take and pass your exam. I know this sounds a little bit simplistic, take and pass your exam, but I'm telling you, if you follow these recommendations, right, if you put your mind to it, you focus, you study and you take it in, you use an exam simulator, then, yes, it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, and your heart is going to be beating during the exam, but you will be able to take and pass that exam. Yes, and that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, in 2021, use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition as you are getting ready for the exam. Wait, there, that's what I wanted to show you. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.